Hey kid, want some titanium? Come with me. All right guys, we're starting a very special project here today. We have 60s body style C10. We have an LS engine and we're gonna be doing a turbo. He has already gotten the manifold and we're gonna be doing all the plumbing and you guessed it, titanium. He has gotten a log style cast stainless manifold here. We're actually gonna be changing out the T4 flange, which is this square bolt jobby. We're gonna be changing over to a stainless V-band housing. This is really nice because, well, V-bands are just, they seal very nice properly. It's a cast stainless housing, so you're not gonna get this rustiness. And the biggest thing I like about it is you can kind of rotate it and clock it into a nice position. So we'll kind of be in this area over here and we'll do some nice titanium downpipe, and we're gonna do some intercooler stuff up front here. We're also gonna change the all the radiator hoses to AN fittings. So this setup is actually very similar to like a Grand National, where two manifolds actually cross over. The one side manifold actually crosses over into the other one, as you can see here. So it's got a factory or like a shorty header on one side, on the driver's side, and it's actually gonna cross over and come into the driver's side, and then that's all gonna be you know, one up pipe. You know, a lot of times traditionally you'll have, you know, twin turbos with two separate turbos on two separate manifolds, or like, you know, two manifolds that are going to be coming into one, but these actually go, the one side crossover into each other. Like I said, a very common thing found in Grand Nationals back in the day. But as always, we're going to be using HD Vangeon clamps. We have some pieces from Vibrant. This is one piece that I really like. So this is a nice 2.5 to 3 inch Vangeon transition. And kind of a standard here is what we do is coming off of the turbo, we usually, we have a cast aluminum tight radius 90-degree elbow. So we'll chop this off, get it nice and tight. A lot of times it's really hard to get the tight radius coming off of this with tubing. So we weld on this tight radius cast piece, and then right off of that, we transition into a 3-inch you know, HD clamp, and then we'll follow that into the intercooler. And then this guy's actually running a big boy throttle body, so we'll actually then transition from 3 to 4 and do 4-inch into the nice Holley intake he's got there. So yeah, again, we got some -20 AN bongs with some nice AN fittings for the radiator hoses. So one, it doesn't melt and pop off, and two, it's just nice seal. Our titanium piecuts from Ticon, you know, a bunch of odds and ends and all kinds of good stuff. So that's about it for now. So stay tuned as we start fabricating. Would you look at that? Got our boy Kyle welded up our freaking compressor housing, tight radius with our Vangeon. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna put this together just kind of loosely to mock it up, and we'll get this all kind of mocked up so we can figure out our layout, and then we'll start running on intercooler piping and start with the fun stuff. So as you can see, we got our core support out. We're gonna start building our brackets for our intercooler and all that. Let's get to it. All right, rolling on the C10 turbo truck thingy build majigger. Started fabbing up the intercooler. We got our HD clamps welded on the intercooler with our titanium ferrules on the other side. Started mocking up a intercooler placement. We're gonna build some brackets. I usually like to make some nice beefy tabs coming off the side and hard mount onto something nice and rigid. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have some bracketry come off of here and probably pick up the core support here. Trying to tuck this intercooler back as far as we can in order to clear the grill. We're gonna have to modify the core support and cut this piece back and poke some holes in it. So I'm actually gonna take the core support out.
All right, back at it. Got all our pieces fabricated on our manifolds. Got our turbo vband flange welded onto that. Also a little pro tip here. I added a little gusset off of the wastegate. A lot of times I found that, you know, this wastegate, if you have like an extension or any kind of elbow, the wastegate's pretty heavy and it pulls down a lot. And I've had them break and crack, so always try to put like a little support in that area if you typically have a wastegate that's hanging off a lot. So we got that, that's our passenger side. And then our driver's side, welded on a V-band on that side as well. So now we'll have a crossover tube coming from that side over into the passenger side, and then out our turbo. Got our core support clearance now, so you can kind of get an idea of what the intercooler placement's gonna be. We'll build some tabs. I started mocking up a little template for our intercooler mounts, and like I said, we have our clearances so we can run our plumbing through there. So I'll get ahead and work on that. We'll install our manifolds and we'll get the rest mocked up. We do have our anfittings welded on our radiator as well, and our water pump.
All right, so we got all our main components mocked up. Got our manifold, got our turbo, got our intercooler. One last thing I need to do is weld the flange onto the throttle body. And after we get that done, we'll have all our pieces to start fabricating the cold side plumbing. As you can see here, we got turbo outlet. It's gonna go right into that intercooler, and then we're gonna come out of here, and then we're gonna route, and we're gonna bump up from 3" to 4" to mate up to the extra big ass throttle body we got there. And then after that's done, we'll start working on our exhaust. Have our downpipe kind of snake through here. Wastegate's gonna come out and gonna kind of follow that, and we're gonna go all throughout the body, and then a special surprise for you guys out there. So. So remember guys, gave you a nice little pro tip in one of our last videos. If you remember these little notches inside of here, basically what we do is trying to get this to rotate a little bit instead of just being a straight, you know, a straight 90 or 180 or whatever in the same plane. We actually want to
kind of start clocking these ever so slightly and start rotating it to kick it up. And that's what I'm doing with these little marks here, little seams inside of here. Basically each notch I'm gonna rotate and start moving it over to make it kick up. This is actually gonna be on the driver's side. This is gonna 180, but what I wanted to do is kind of 180 and rotate, start to rotate up like this and let it kind of come out, because there's not a lot of clearance to kick this up where I want it, and mostly because I think it looks really sweet as it starts to twist and take shape kind of in like a weird funky twisty pattern. So anyway, remember that pro tip. All right guys, back on the C10, we're gonna give you a little update. Before we get too into it, I'd like to extend to you guys a pro tip, if you will, just a little piece of advice I'd like to give you guys. I did make a mistake. Things happen, nothing too major. Fortunately, we caught it a little bit ahead of time. Let me explain to you what happened. We got the AC compressor, that was an upgrade. He's doing a full holley like mid-mount setup, as well as you know, AC and turbo. All that stuff was installed before it got here. One thing I didn't have is I didn't have the fitting for the AC compressor, and I had started to mock everything up, and I actually had the turbo placed exactly where I wanted it. And unfortunately, good thing I caught this, but it actually it was painted black. It was kind of just like as the compressor comes, it had like a little plate in there, and it was already like painted black, so I didn't notice it. I had this compressor really tight up against here, and even though that I did end up getting the fitting that came with the kit, it's just like this standard AC fitting. Even with that, this compressor housing was basically like super close touching here. I wasn't able to get any fitting on there. So my pro tip to you is that when you're building stuff like this, or really anything, make sure you have every piece of component that's required, because it's a lot easier to work around something than it is to have to modify or remake or, you know, anything like that. So fortunately, it wasn't a big issue. I was able to source this super nice tight AC line fitting. I did have to make some modifications to the manifold. As you can see, I put a slit, I cut the flange off, and I actually had to angle it down a little bit to get it to sit away from the fittings, but we were able to move it over, get it super nice, and everything's happy. So moving on, we got our intercooler mounted. That thing is super tight and secure. That's not going anywhere. Super nice, super tight. HD clamps, I think we briefed on that. We did our AN fittings on our radiator, elbow on the compressor housing, upgraded to the V-band housing, started doing the crossover tube, we can show that later. Did a little wastegate gusset, we talked about that. Got our final position of the turbocharger. Started mocking up some titanium. Took our throttle body, added our nice HD clamp onto that, and started mocking up our turbo intake plumbing. Another little pro tip while we're on the pro tip subject, this 90, it's actually kind of, I don't want to say cheated, but a lot of times these intakes are super close to the radiator or any kind of components. So what I like to do is I like to get it as tight as I can, get the 90 as tight as I can. Let's take this for example. If this piece was flat up against here, this 90 would actually start to kick out. So what I do is I'll take the beginning at 90 and I'll actually kind of slice it on the inside and tuck it up against the flange in order to get this 90 to sit further away from the components. It actually makes it a little bit less of a 90. You're actually starting to cheat the bend a little bit. You know, I don't do it too much. It's really just like a little sliver of this pie, but it's, I'd say 3/8 of an inch. But you know how it is, man, everything counts, so every little bit counts. There's gonna be a shroud here, it'll probably stick out into there, but yeah. So because it cheats the bend, I was able to take away a couple pies to get this thing nice and flat. This will, you know, come 4 inch here, and then got our reducer That'll go 3-inch into our intercooler, but that's about it for now. There's a little update, little pro tips, and we're gonna get freaking rolling. All right guys, we got a bunch of pieces mocked up on this. Decided to paint our intercooler black just to give it a nice stealth look. That way when you have the aluminum grill in front of it, there's not a lot of kind of busyness in the background. Cleaned it up a little bit, but got a bunch of stuff mocked up, getting rolling. Got our downpipe mocked up, wastegate mocked up, tacked our 90s, started mocking up the cold side here. Got our intake mocked up, getting some mock-ups going, lots of mocking, but yeah, so we're basically gonna get ready to pull all this off. What we'll do is we'll weld most of the 90s, most of the stuff together. Let's get welding. All right, so we got our piece cut out, and what we're gonna do about it? We're gonna have to make a reinforcement plate. Already got our nice piece cut, but it's flat. So how do we make it not flat? I'll show you right now. Spared fingers. We're gonna take some template paper. We're gonna trace our pattern. And that's your shape you're gonna try to follow. We're gonna give it a little bump every ½ inch. Kyle, is this yours? This is gross, man. Disgusting. All right, got our piece in here nice and filled in like it was brand new. Got our exhaust mocked up here. Got the mid pipe going. Gonna be nice straight shot actually. Works out really, really good. These trucks got a nice little pocket right on the side here. Perfect area to snake an exhaust through here. Real busy up in this area, so when you're laying frame or body drop, there's always suspension components and engine components and cross bracing and a lot of stuff back here, so it's kind of hard to get around things. So we got a nice little surprise for you. And you guessed it, sikdump coming out the side. We'll continue out here. We'll maybe do a couple 45s and then we'll roll. And I hate to cut up real nice patina, but hey man, gotta do it for the sikdump. So, all right, let's get to it. Sikdump time. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take our 90, we're gonna cut it, we're gonna chop it, give us our little teardrop flare exhaust tip action. So we have our saw set up. Basically we're gonna cut it right at the front of this bend here, and then we'll end up with the other piece. There you have it. We got our sikdump in place. We got our very own HW titanium exhaust cover hangers. Got the mid pipe section all figured out. Got another hanger over here. We're gonna head and pop this off. I fabbed up the centerpiece that's gonna go right along here. Gonna get that tacked up and then weld that side in and then final position this and get that burned in, and that's done. We'll get our wastegate dump figured out here and we'll start wrapping this thing up. All right, just finished up the final tack. You can see the freaking downpipe looking nice and sweet. That's the downpipe, that's our mid pipe. We have all our titanium finished up here. A lot different than last time you saw it. Bunch of boxes, bunch of pieces, but magic, here we go. So we have our wastegate dump with a signature cute little sikdump action. Then we have our downpipe. Nice little O2 brace. And then our mid pipe. So heavy. Got our tie exhaust hangers. Sikdump at the end. It'll be like this. You'll see it on the car. It'll look cool. Coming out of the turbo. Going in the intercooler. Coming out of the intercooler. Got our blow off valve. Got our MAF on the back side. Just to kind of hide it, make it nice and clean. Going from 3-inch, bumping out to 4-inch into our extra big ass throttle body. We're gonna install all these parts together and that's about it.
we got everything assembled back together. Intercooler tucked up back to real nice. We got our intercooler plumbing all done, all titanium. Got our downpipe, wastegate. Got our fans. We ended up upgrading the fans, new fan shroud. Did some anfittings. Let's roll this thing outside and get a good look at it. Well, that's about it, man. That wraps up this project. Super cool, super excited, man. This thing came out super killer. Tight fit, but we made everything work. Like I said, I was very pumped to be working on this. I really like this truck. It's super awesome. It has the patina, in my opinion. I mean, this is the look. You know, got a good motor, of course, boost. It came out super sick. I can't wait to hear what it sounds like. They're gonna pick it up. They're gonna do some final touches to it and you know, get it back on the road. So be sure to check it out. Stay tuned for more footage. You can see got the downpipe and exhaust coming through there with our wastegate sikdump action. You can see all the titanium, all the piecuts, all the beautiful work that we did. Came out super awesome. Very excited. And as well, we got our sikdump on the end here, coming out the back. Be sure to stay tuned for some more footage of this thing. I'm sure we'll be getting some more stuff of it. But for now, we'll see you next time. For my next trick, we're gonna balance. Titanium so light, it holds itself up.